Hello and
Well,
welcome to Every Day with an Angel. I want you to know that you are so blessed to be here. And, I know there's going to be people coming in and that kind of thing. Well, I get to have my partner in what was our show before on Mondays. And Regan said that he's going to be here every third Wednesday now
mhm,
on the next level. Whew, I have so many names going through my head today. It's like, have you felt
mhm.
discombobulated by this eclipse? I know I have. It's like keeping things straight in my head here. But thank you, Regan, for being here.
You're welcome.
Visit the Afterlife is Regan's YouTube chat. I'm going to let you speak for a minute while I
All
realign
right.
my brain.
I kind of feel that way today too. I think the whole world is goofy right now, as we're going to talk about.
Discombobulated. That's
I
a good
know.
one. Discombobulated.
Yeah, my website is, as you see on the screen there,
Mhm.
visittheafterlife.com. And like Natasha and I are like counterpoints here, where we both have ways of getting you to see a bigger picture of things. Me by helping you achieve a deep state of trance and visiting the afterlife for a few hours, kind of like a near-death experience without the death part. And Natasha, she's got a direct connection there. You can talk to her, and she can see things for you.
Mhm.
So it's what we do from the Newton Institute, and usually we just get together. We were doing that podcast for 3 years, and now because we're both been so busy, we've had to switch things around. So I'm happy to be on here and to see my friend Natasha at least once a month.
I
I'm in
know.
California by San Francisco, and she's up in the Washington area. So we're separated that way. But isn't it interesting with Zoom and the way the world's changed in the last 15, 20 years, where now anybody in the world, you can just do this Zoom thing and you feel like there's no distance.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
very, very interesting, and that's how, I think too. Like today we're going to talk about conflict. Conflict in our minds, conflict in the world. It seems that we're reaching a crescendo here all over the world. You know, what I was thinking the other day, like Palestine and Israel now are going toe to toe, and Russia and Ukraine. Well, in America here, we're actually toe to toe too. But right now, not in a violent way. Um, and I was thinking today, I wonder if that's because, in a sense, America has kind of evolved a little bit to where, hopefully our conflicts will never be like the Civil War was.
Mhm.
Because the Civil War was like Israel and Palestine. It was like people living in the same vicinity, just going, boom, boom, right over the other. But now we're doing that about democracy. Here about, are we going to continue with this experiment in democracy, or is it going to go down the tubes? Because a good portion of the United States is just doesn't is going down where they want more of a, what, I don't know, what would be a theocracy or a you know a,
I don't really know what it would be because it
yeah,
wouldn't be, but it's almost like I was listening to someone and they were even saying that, democracy only has so much time that it's allowed. Hi, Veronica. It's that it's only allowed so much time, and we're at that end of that time that usually, democracy works. But it's actually, I think democracy could work a whole lot better if we didn't have conflict.
yeah,
You know, Republicans, Democrats, independents, nobody can get their footing in the right way. And
yeah.
how do we get along? And I know that, hi Soba, how you doing? Thank you for being here and watching. I appreciate your support. That, it's one of those things that we're going into. And, I, every time I see 1111, I pray that can we just get along? Can
I
we
know.
just get along? Wasn't that a movie? Can we just get along? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
it's that, negotiation of who we are, but we don't even get along with our own brains half the time. So how can we get along with
I
other
know.
people? It's like, our
uh,
brains kind of do our thing, and then people do our thing, and it's
I
like,
know.
how do we negotiate conflict of our emotions? Because emotions are what really get triggered when we having a conversation with someone, you
Yeah,
know And I put in conflict of the mind in the, what was, but then I added after I started writing the description about emotions because, they kind of go hand in hand. You have a conversation with someone and then they trigger a story on you that creates a trigger of those emotions. And then we go through it. And I've had a lot of people that, their marriages are breaking up, or, they have relationships with people who are narcissists, or they have, it's like we have all these things that, abuse and negotiations. And how do we get through all this conflict that we're in? And
Yeah. Well, the funny thing I was thinking the other day, okay, I'm just using because Israel and Hamas, or the Palestine thing, there's that conflict there too. But when you break it even further down, I think so many times we have that same conflict going on within ourselves, of two parts of ourselves,
Mhm.
and it's that constant, like the devil angel kind of thing going on, and we have this conflict because they both have desires, they
Mhm.
both want what they want, and we have to come to some sort of conflict resolution within ourselves sometimes,
Mhm.
before. And sometimes the devil wins, sometimes the angel wins, I mean,
Yeah.
it's but I think a lot of times the people, as you get to a certain level of spiritual unfoldment, you realize when, I'll just say, the devil and negative, for you know I think they both serve the purpose or whatever, but we start realizing when we go the negative route or the devil route, there's usually a bigger price to pay down the line, sometimes, when you're not coming from, just from love, in that way. Um,
Well, I know one way that I work through my conflict is I try to get, and I just looked this up, perception and perspective.
mhm.
Perception is what you interpret, right? But perspective is you taking the overview point. You put your one foot in other people's shoes. You
Oh,
take a third person's perspective. You look at the world
yeah,
outside of you, and that's one thing that I really look at doing is I try to take that third person's point of view because of the fact
that's the
that
best.
there's no right or wrong. There's really no right or wrong because everybody's perception is what were brought up in, what our truth is, what we gain our truths along our timeline. Like Regan, your perception of life since you were, 10 years old compared to the age you are now has probably
Oh,
changed
all
over
the time.
16 zillion times, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
and but then, but every time you've probably taken that I have it up here,
Yeah.
perspective, yeah, that it gave it a little bit more grace.
Perspective is a beautiful thing. When we can, we've always had the thing. Well, before you judge somebody, walk a mile in their shoes.
Mhm.
Even just walk a couple of feet or something. I mean, just when I'm thinking of the Israel and Palestine issue, that's so, I don't know, that's so intermeshed. It's not just one issue. I mean, for someone to unpack that, I mean, it would take the most wise therapist, if you sat down with both groups and
Mhm.
just slowly tried to unwind it, it's
It would go
sometimes,
back it would go back millions of years in a way, you
yeah,
know? And I know that we haven't been on this planet millions of years, but, that's how long basically since that land started being negotiated with.
yeah,
That's how long conflict has been there. And whose land is it truly? It's Mother Earth's land,
right.
you
It's
know?
Mother's Earth's land, and everybody has an equal right to every part of it, but
Exactly.
until we get that perspective, it's going to have conflict, you know so what I'm just thinking, the beautiful thing about America, especially when I was in San Francisco the other day walking down, and all of a sudden, I'm walking by Chinese people, Hispanic people, Black people, it's like the whole mix of the world, and everybody's just walking there, and everybody's just okay, you know. But in some countries, they still have this thing. It's like it's just our way and our race and our everybody who around me needs to be exactly like me, or they're outcasts. And so
Mhm.
until there's some growth in that area, there's always going to be this conflict.
Well, I know,
Um,
yes, because I know I live close to the city of Seattle, right? And there's parts of the city that are very, I'm gonna call them uppity. You
yeah,
know? And then there's some that aren't so uppity. And then there's some that, you can walk by and have like, spikes in your head, and you're
hmm,
just that's just and colors, and that's just who you are. And then there's other places where if that same person walked down the street, the cops would be called on them,
you're
right?
right.
It's just that closed in moment, and that I think that's where we get conflict in the mind is because we do close up into, like let's say if you have a conversation with someone and they get triggered, right? How are
Yeah,
we to know that somebody's going to get triggered?
yeah,
How do we know that? We can't know that unless we've been with somebody for 30 some odd years.
yeah.
Then we kinda have more of a say of, "Oh, yeah, I know that person might get a little bit more triggered," right?
Yeah. Well, one thing that's interesting, I talked about this before on the show, but I guess it would uh, be a little example of conflict and resolution when you do it spiritually. Like I had a couple come to me, and in regular therapy, they were like this. They just couldn't. They came to an impasse. You know, they just and so their therapist recommended them come to me, and said, well, we could take it a step further by having them go to the afterlife and talk about their issues over there. So one day the wife came in and she went to the afterlife, and talked to the council and stuff over there, and she talked to the higher self of her husband. What we found out is when all of us decide to be born, we put about half of our spiritual self in the human body, and we keep about half on the other side.
Mhm.
So people are able to talk to the higher selves of people still alive in their life. So she went over there, talked to the husband with his soul self over there, and got more of a perspective of what was going on with this divine sandpaper that they were pushing each
Mhm.
other up against. And then he did the same. And then after they did that, they came together and they were able to begin to work on things earnestly because they both loved each other. But they just, something was like this. So getting a higher perspective, getting the spiritual perspective, a bigger picture of their relationship, they were able to come back and resolve some issues. So I mean, I just it's just not probable that you'd have who's ever head of the Israelis and the Palestine people, or Hamas and the other. I mean, wouldn't it be, gosh, it would be a beautiful thing if they finally said, can we just stop killing each other? You know, how about this? How about this whole land here now? Why don't we just make it both of ours? And you have your temples, and we both have our temples and stuff. And you guys do your thing, and we'll bless you, and you do let us do our thing, and we'll work together. Our kids will play together, and everything will be okay. Because if it finally came to that, it would be fine. But
Yep.
it's so frustrating you know
Because
when it's
it's not necessarily even the leaders, it's the person that's behind the scenes that is like, how many people do we know are pot stirrers?
oh yeah, hmm,
You know, those pot stirrers that just like to the
yeah,
scenario, and that kind of thing, and it's just an amazing dance of how do we do this, and, as you were talking about somebody coming out, I thought, yeah, Mr. Rogers is one that probably could go in and have a conversation with both of them,
I
right?
know. Mr. Rogers set everybody down. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
If anybody
But
knows Mr. Rogers, he was one of those people who had a kids show, and but yet he had, oh my gosh, he had a way of just being. You know,
yeah,
he just had an awareness of life, and he wasn't perfect by any means, but he just had new ways. So let's kind of get into this a little bit because we cannot solve you
right.
know Russia and Ukraine and the conflicts of Africa, and now Israel and Hamas,
It's
whoever
pretty
is
much all over. Yeah.
there's conflict everywhere, right? And even talking about our government, between the Republicans and the Democrats, it's like,
Hmm.
what river is standing between the two of them? I don't know, besides
Hmm.
the word hate, or dislike, but it's that thing. But the only way we can really heal the world is by healing ourselves.
Yeah.
And how do we work with ourselves? Because I can tell you that living with like I've been saying, I have a 32-year marriage, 34 years together, and in 11 years now he's sober, right? So there was a lot of conflict outside of me.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, when I became more innerly in peace about what steps I was doing and where I was going, I can tell you, every time I made a difference with me, the difference outside of me changed.
Yeah.
I'm not
I,
responsible for anybody else,
yeah.
but it did, because I changed how I interacted with it.
Yeah. So, do you think maybe, since we can't, in a sense, change everybody's minds on everything, and we can only work on ourselves, that's what we have to concentrate on? You said, well, maybe these people are going at it like crazy and doing all this dysfunctional stuff, but at least I can try in my relationships and
Mhm.
everything that I'm doing to not be that way, and hope that that energy will go to the pot of the good, and hopefully,
Well,
change the.
exactly. Well, like talking about these clients that you had, right? That
Mhm.
she went and got a perspective, right?
Mhm.
He went and got a perspective, which they brought back to get a different perception about how they were going to look at each other,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? And so them each coming back having a different perception about how they were going to interact, because the perception was, how am I going to interact with him, and how are we going to, that stepping back really interacted with that dance
Yeah.
of who we are. And that's the only way really that we can go in and heal something, is, because if they each only had a perspective, right,
Yeah.
they they wouldn't have gotten so much work. They had to come back and work on themselves. And so, but thank you very much for chiming in here. Both sides are in survival mode. They can't see the full picture. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing about survival mode. And they live in fear and hate. Yes, because that's actually survival, is you go into the primalness, and it
Yeah.
comes down to that primal moments, right? So good job putting that perspective in there.
So,
Um,
I would. I'll tell you what I'm feeling, and I think I get that from people that are mediums like you, or other people that are light workers, and things that they say. And I've been hearing it for years, but it seems to be kind of true now. I'm thinking, to get the perspective, the bigger picture of what's going on with all this conflict all over. And I don't know if I just say this because it's something that helps make sense to me and I can just relax about it, but um,
just say it, because it's
a
what
lot of.
it's a truth that and it may help somebody else.
Okay, well, a lot of light workers are saying that the souls all over this planet, that ever since that we've been evolving, there's different stages we've gone through. You
Mhm,
know, in other words, we're a little more aware and a little more
mhm,
aware,
mhm.
and that usually what happens when there's the next step that's supposed to happen, that is very common for the old ways of thinking and everything to just disintegrate, to fall apart. For, in other words, people who are in the old consciousness compared to the new one coming up, fight like heck to keep things the same.
They
But
do.
there's something greater than us all that's causing, let's say, half of us to really want to rush forward into this, and the other people are holding back. And there's that tension between the two, and it just causes all kinds of crazy stuff. But looking further down the road, I don't know if that would be in a few years, if that would be 100 years. I don't know.
Yes
You
and
could,
yes.
okay. Yeah. Well, I think so too, because everything just doesn't change and everything's perfect. There's
Mhm.
always a transition and everything. And well, look at civil rights, for instance, where back in the 60s, we had a big jump forward, you know, where finally there was this laws we passed here where you can't discriminate against color, sex,
Mhm.
religion, everything like that. Okay, well that was fine, but that didn't just all go away. Some of it lessened, and some people started getting more justice, that way. But look at everything as of late, and how much discrimination and how much everything there still is. Sometimes it's not overtly that way
Mhm.
because people know they'll get in trouble, but there's other ways of keeping women down or keeping minorities down or things like that. And so now it's all coming out again, and it's causing all kinds of strife. And I think that's because it's saying we need to take another big step now. We need to really look at all this and take that next step. So
We always have agitation,
yeah,
endings, unease to get us to move forward.
yeah,
I always know my life is gonna do a big leap when I'm in that, "Oh, crap, I can't deal with what I'm going through. Oh, what's this story supposed to be?" And then I get this big either perspective that jumps me up,
yeah,
or I'm meant to move on to something else.
yeah.
Another thing happens, though, now that I think about it, is when I kinda get really, really easily comfortable. And I'm like
Mm.
going, "Okay, what's coming next?"
I know. It's like we're always looking for the other shoe to drop.
Exactly, but it's not that it's always gonna drop in a bad way. Because I can tell you, even the time that my job ended and my cat passed away on the same day, basically, I moved into a new percep new, I kept in the same school, but I changed into a new job description that I felt like I was going down in, what I was doing, but actually after I realized what I was there for, I was able actually to work less hours so I can do my intuitive work more hours.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
actually, the universe was agitating me out of a job position, and my cat couldn't help me anymore. My
yeah.
cat
Patty,
couldn't be there anymore.
my Patty, who's my significant other, my
Mm.
my wife, the person I love the most in the world. Um, Both of us have been going through this transition now about instead of pushing towards something, we've allowing things to happen.
Mhm.
Putting the intent out there of what we want and then just allowing it to happen instead of push, push, push. Like, in her occupation now, since she started doing that, it's like she's comfortably busier than ever. And even me too. And Natasha, with you, both of us seem to be on the same train here with what we're doing as light workers with, just putting things out there. And now it's beginning to come back to where we're being able to help
Mhm.
more and more people, that way.
Well, I
Um,
know for me, I did some personal work with cutting back some contracts that I've had. I always felt like I was in a short room, so I was
mhm,
butting my head. I couldn't get up, and so there was a conflict in me, knowing that there was something that was off, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then when I figured out how to work with someone that can do a lot of the same work I do, that she was able to go in and see some perspectives that I wasn't seeing, because sometimes you can't it's like doctor heal yourself doesn't really work, right?
yeah,
That you needed other perspectives, and so going into that once I did that, it was like I kept not having to bump my head against the wall, right? It
mhm,
was like, oh, I can stand up. Oh, now I can take my foot off the gas pedal and just let it go, right? Because I wasn't
mhm,
trying to get out of someplace, right?
mhm,
So being able to do that took away a lot of conflict out of me. That it was like, okay, it was something outside of me that was controlling me, not necessarily what I was doing, even though I needed to step up and meet it. I had to step up and get into what I was doing fully, like you were doing. It's like your next level was checking out how to do Zoom, or clients over
right,
Zoom, and going into the tech thing, which was conflict, right? It was conflictable to you. You didn't
mhm,
know if you could do a good job. And so you were traveling more, right?
mhm.
Now I bet you're traveling less because you're just saying, "I can Zoom it," right?
Yeah, yeah. As I've become more confident, my clients have been more confident, and I don't know why that. I guess see, the more we do this, it's just proof. It's proof that there's no space between any of us really. We're just. It's all. In other words, I remember when there was some medical intuitives, back in the 70s, 80s, and they would be on the phone with somebody, and they'd be, they'd talking to the person, and they would feel their energy, and they would say, "Oh, you need this, and you need this, and this is wrong, and this is wrong," and part of me always kind of believed it, but part of me went, "Oh, come on, how could they do that?" But I've seen now, just because of the fact of this, when I'm with Zoom with people, and just watching them go into trance, and me being on this screen, them on that screen, and here they are in the afterlife for a few hours having these amazing experiences, and we're just doing it over this electronics thing. I mean, it's really kind of cool.
Yeah,
That way.
exactly. So how is one of your personal ways that you work through some of your personal conflict? Let's say,
um
that you do something that is conflict with Patty, and
yeah,
you know that you did something not necessarily right, but you didn't do necessarily anything wrong at the same
yeah.
time, and then at the same time, but you made some disharmony
Hmm.
into the situation, which actually adds conflict into you, right?
Hmm.
Because it's a ripple effect, as you do for others, the scenario comes back to you. So how do you negotiate some of those moments?
I'm working on it. But I know, the right thing to do, is just just lovingly talk to your partner, the other thing, and just, in other words, anytime you have an agenda, this is one thing I know, when you have agenda to try to force the way you think of um your am I okay, I'm getting perspective and what's the two things again?
Perception is yours.
Okay. Okay, my
Perspective
perception.
is outwardly.
Yeah. Anytime I'm trying to explain or push my perception onto her, you know, because I already know she's got a different perception than I do. And so I have to get to where to know that each perception is equally valid, you know,
Mhm.
but you have to find a way for the both of you to get to the perspective of, oh, one thing is to look at it and realize you each have your own perception. That doesn't mean necessarily that you're wrong. But when you kind of look at all the details and you get the perspective. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Say that again.
perspective is
Yeah.
outwardly.
Perspective is the bigger picture, right?
Mhm.
Okay. That's when things change. Then you go, whoa. Most of my problems in my life and relationships have been that I tried to push my perception onto another one to have them to have the same perception that I do, you
Mhm.
know, and which would have been much better to really try as hard as you can to put yourself in the other person's shoes, see um, their perception, perception, and and through that you get perspective. I really like the way you're putting this today because that makes so much difference when you get
Because
the
perception
perspective.
is about how you interpret it, and perspective is the viewpoint.
Yeah, perspective. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
in other words, again, with if you grow up Jewish or you grow up Muslim, you're taught a certain way of looking at things, uh, and you're not taught perspective, which is, in other words, to look at other people's beliefs and see how they believe things too, to get more of an idea, so you can see the contrast between the two.
mhm.
You're just taught that this one way that we're teaching you how to look at things, and it could be whether it's even within Christianity, whether you're Protestant or Catholic, there's a certain you know um, way that they want you to look at things, and it doesn't take into account other people's ways of
Mhm.
looking at things. uh,
Exactly, and that's the way, that, because even those years when my husband was drinking, I really tried to look at what his I put tried to put one foot in his shoes. How is he feeling? What is he trying to say? What is, it wasn't necessarily how he was saying was right, or how it was being manipulated wasn't right,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a story behind what he was saying. And I tried to go over what was in the front of it: anger, frustration, disappointment, judgment, whatever it was. And I tried to go over that to the backside of what he was feeling, which was sadness, disappointment. Why am I not being heard? That
Mm-hmm.
that inner part of us that goes, but I just want to be heard. Of course, he was drinking, which didn't make it easy to hear him, right? So there was
Mm-hmm.
that conflict, that sometimes we sabotage ourselves because we're putting out this emotion that's creating the conflict, when actually if we took that scenario down a notch or two. And that's one thing that I tell people: communication is 90% of the healing of this, right?
Yeah.
It's 90%, even communication with ourselves. And like I was talking with someone who, they did something, and there was a ripple effect because of that decision, and having to live with that scenario, right? Well, living with that scenario, the way that I've had to negotiate this is that, you know, I've done things that weren't perfect. When my mom had Lou
Mm-hmm.
Gehrig's disease, you know, and I had
Mm-hmm.
a new baby, and I had a husband that just changed a job. I just bought a house, sold 2 houses. It's like I was a little bit done, and I was a little bit cooked, and I didn't do everything the better I could, and there was a lot of conflict in me through that story. And and after, when I knew I could do better, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
looking back, we can always do better, right? But that's where I had to find mantras. I had to find mantras to stop this story of the
Yeah.
brain going through the pattern of repeating itself. Well, why did you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Because if I didn't heal the conflict in me, then I wasn't going to be able to heal the conflict around me, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so with that, then I had to communicate with myself better. And one of the mantras I use is, I'm not doing anything wrong, but there's something I can change. I'm not doing anything wrong, but there's something I can change.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong that we do certain things, but but it's, who are we interacting with? And that's what we can change: is how do we communicate? How can we say, well, I have this to do, and I know that if I do this, it's going to cause a ripple effect, which triggers you. So how can I shift? I'm going to let you know that this is what I'm doing so that it doesn't trigger you when I don't communicate with you.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. And so there again is, I'm not doing anything wrong, but there's something I can change. And then another one I use is, I'm asking for divine healing on this. I'm asking for healing on this. It's out of my, it's bigger than me right now. And it's bigger than my emotions can handle. And I'm just asking for healing on this. Somebody come in and work with me, please, so that I can work. And this is where I trust my universal team around me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And doing those kinds of things. So Soba had an uh had a note. I love how you're interacting with this. Thank you very much. So to help change my perspective in life, I question everything around me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also religious beliefs, because people to do not care about their life on earth. They are meant to suffer here on and earn their place in heaven. Also, religious beliefs cause people to not care about their life here on earth. They are meant to suffer here on earth. Yes, so let me interpret what I think that you're saying there is that, religion teaches us that we're not good enough.
Yeah.
I know was participating in a religion when I was younger because it was the school I went to. It was the closest school. It was the easiest for me to do. And so the perspective that they had is or perception or perspective is that I was a sinner because I was human, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know I didn't go to bed when my mom told me to go to bed, but I didn't steal anything. I didn't talk bad about people. I didn't go in and I actually was the one being bullied, right? mean, I was just the quiet one. I was the one that didn't want to speak. I was the one that, and so with that there again is that they were telling me I was a sinner. And I'm like, why are you causing conflict in me when I don't have that conflict in me? I'm
Yeah.
not doing wrong, right? And so there's where religion can kind of put us in a place where, you know, if you do this, you're going to go to hell, right? And God's going to hate you and all these things, right? But, you know, my understanding of life is that if you go into your personal hell of depression and suffering and that you're always the one doing things wrong when you're not, right? Because of other people's perspectives and understandings, right? That they call us doing wrong, that why should we have that conflict and not negotiate what to appreciate our life here on earth, because we actually can be in heaven here if we have that perspective.
Hmm.
That's why I'm keeping this up. Perspective, right?
Hmm.
Um, so going into this, so I hope that but that's kind of a little bit what you meant by about how religion kind of taints us about being here on earth and wants us to go to heaven, when actually we can do that if we take our suffering out of it. And
Yeah.
taking the conflict, because I know for me, since I've been more at peace with myself and rolling with what's happening, right? Rolling with what's happening, I get less conflict with what I'm doing.
Hmm.
You
Well,
know, go
yeah,
ahead.
like, well, it just seems to me a lot of time, like on some level or way of looking at things, uh, these different religions are in the ballpark. In other words, like I never understood original sin. Like with the Catholics, I was always taught growing up that we're born. In other words, like God gives us some, so, we're born broken. You know, already. Just when, even if we haven't done anything wrong, we have original sin that's in our soul. I didn't understand that until later on in life when I got the perspective of karma. In other words, most of us that are born have created some kind of what we would call negative karma from other lifetimes, and we come down here to work on it. And I thought, oh well, that's another perception,
Mhm.
of things, but it's not as crazy to me as the uh, just like, in other words, trying to say that you're less than. Like, none of us are less than. We're just souls that are down here to learn. I mean, just because, let's look at it this way, just because it's your first day in English 101, doesn't mean that you're an illiterate, stupid person. It just means that you're there to learn, how to be more, how to express yourself better, how to understand things, how to understand the language in English and that. But if
Mhm.
if the teachers, you come in there and the teacher says, "Oh, you guys, you students in here, you're all worthless right now, and you have to do good in the class before you can feel like you're worth something." I mean, it's taking it to a more negative place, than
Mhm.
how things really are. So, I like a lot of times when you go by some of the churches and they have what the sermon is, and it'll be something like, it'll be something light, like, "Hey, fellow sinners, come on in. Let's see what we can do to be better people." That's a lot different than seeing one saying, "You sinners are going to hell. You better come to church on Sunday so you don't burn in fire
Exactly,
hellfire."
exactly,
you know
exactly,
it's the same with the same people. It's just a different way of looking at things, that way. And one's coming
exactly.
from a more loving way, and one's coming from a more controlling, degrading way, which
But
is
that's
bad
how a
in
lot of us
itself.
are taught. We're taught from very
You're
young
right.
to how to be degrading. We're taught
Yeah.
from a very young age to be hurtful or hateful towards certain things, and we listen to things by osmosis. We don't know why we interpret things the way we do, because we don't realize what we're really hearing, and that starts in the womb, that we start
Yeah.
hearing things. And so with that, it's like it's one of those negotiates. Another way that I look at things a lot of times is I've learned to take the person off the situation. So if I find myself in conflict, let's say with a conversation that happened, I try to take the I take the idea of what I got triggered with. In that conversation, what did I get triggered with? So then I take the person off the situation and I take it back to what I got triggered with. I got triggered with saying that, let's say I was running late all the time when I know that that wasn't what the truth was, right? That I was not running late. I may walk into some place a minute late, or I might walk into a place a minute early, right? It's not that I'm late. It's just one of those things. But someone else was saying that I was late. So instead of saying, well, that person told me this, I looked at I was triggered with the words given to me that I was running late. So then I knew how to negotiate that. Okay, well, I know that that's not. So that's okay. I'm going to use a little bit of discernment here, and I'm going to use a little bit of an understanding. Okay, so that trigger. So then when I go back to have conversation with someone, then I know what my trigger is instead of the person being the trigger. Does that make sense? So then I know how to communicate with the
Yeah.
person a little bit different because I know my trigger is being late. It's not the person that was triggering me. Well, the person could be triggering you, but it's the conversation. So then what in that conversation was triggering me? And so how do I negotiate? That's one way that I appease my conflict a little bit more is I take the person out of it. So then I can deal with what the trigger is
Yeah.
and negotiate it. Just like, going back to what we were talking about with Hamas and Pakistan and Israel, right? That if we took out Pakistan and Israel, right?
Palestine and
Palestine,
Israel.
sorry about that. Thank you for clarifying me.
It's
I never want
it's
to dishonor.
Pakistan, and the other one is Pakistan and India. I mean,
Oh
they're
no,
going at each
I
other.
don't want to ever dishonor. I really don't want to
Right.
dishonor. So I apologize. There again, could have caused conflict. I
Yeah.
apologize. Thank you for clarifying that. Um, that's one thing about dyslexia is that I know the words I want to say, but what comes out of my mouth is not always what I want to say. My kids even said when they were younger, "Mom, do you realize what you said?" I go, "What?" I said this and this and this. And they go, "No." I go, "Oh, okay." I apologize. So the conflict over in the Middle East right now, right? If we took those two names off of them and get down into the situation, we might find a little bit less of a trigger
Yeah.
because then we're talking about scenarios. And I bet you each country has that scenario that's happening in their country.
Yeah. If you could take the labels off of everything, and one side you could say, "Okay, fellow human being over there," and
Mm-hmm.
the other person said, "Well, what do you want, fellow human being?" That just even saying that changes the whole perspective. Instead of,
Exactly.
"Hey,
It's
I'm
it's
this and you're that,"
it's
because
kind of
we're
like
all,
in Germany, when there was the war, two sides would have dinner together and then they couldn't shoot each other, right?
yeah.
Because they took the name off of people, the German or American, got down to human. And that's the thing
Hmm.
is that, how can we negotiate those conflicts in ourselves knowing that we're human? So taking hey, Natasha, you did this and this and this, come down to say, I did this. Yeah, I could have done something different, but I didn't. And
Hmm.
what am I going to do about that? I'm asking for healing on this because I didn't want to do what I had ended up happening, right? I
Hmm.
didn't want to do that. And that's the thing that if we can negotiate the world around us with a little bit more grace for ourselves and others and breathe. Can you imagine the ripple effect? It's kind of like the you throw a rock in the water and then you throw another rock on the water and then you throw another rock on the water and then all those ripple effects come together, right?
Yeah.
And they change each other and they actually shift the ripples, right? They shift the ripples. So That's the thing is that you never know when you do that inner work yourself, what ripple effect you're going to have. Because I can tell you that every time I had a conflict, it rose me up to another level of myself.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because we're talking about the ripple effect, or some people call it the butterfly effect, or it's like when I was thinking of a family member who had a drug and alcohol problem, and then when I was really looking at the bigger picture and how that rippled out to, for years, just that one person getting a DUI even, and everything that happened after that, and it just, I mean, it's rippled out for 3 years,
Hmm.
and still from that one action, it's like it's affecting the family around, they're around there with what happens, So um, that's the thing that, of course, when we're about to make a wrong decision, we're usually just thinking only about ourselves, and that you don't realize until later, what this ripple effect would be. Like when I had anger issues back in my 40s, and caused my 11-year-old daughter to cry for 2 days from listening to me yell and scream, and that's when I first realized this ripple effect of like, oh my God, and I had to take responsibility for that, and that's what got me into anger management for 3 years, which was a lifesaver for me. So because you don't want to do that, but
And that's there again is that conflict that you had inside of you. You had that conflict. She had the conflict because she was witnessing you, right?
right. Hmm.
And then you had that conflict of understanding, boy, did I cause that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can still
Yeah.
feel the energy in you knowing that you hurt this little girl, right? But yet
Yeah,
at the
I
same
know.
time, though, you did do action to heal that. And then what does she think of you now?
Oh yeah, we're very, very close now. I mean, we have an amazing relationship now, which is good, which is
Because
good.
she saw
So
you do the
that's
work that would
right. Yeah.
heal that conflict.
Yeah. And but there's still part of, still part of me, and I'm not 100% healed myself from that. There's a little bit of self-loathing over that still, that's there about, wow, how could I have done that? And it's the same feeling that I had when I was on the other side and coming back from my 2 hours or my 3 hours in heaven, and standing on this cliff, and there were people lined up as far down as I could see that were lined up to hug me and tell me they forgave me, for
Mhm.
stuff I did to them in another lifetime. And so in trance there, I'm just crying my eyes out, thinking about what did I do to this person? What did I do to that person? Oh my gosh, and you realize how much damage we do over lifetime after lifetime making these wrong decisions.
Mhm.
And people that are abusers, many times become the abuser themselves. And it goes on for the ripple effect from the initial abuse that a person suffered causes sometimes to go for many generations down,
Yeah,
where
exactly.
yeah, just one bad thing that happened, or one bad choice someone made, and you're affecting generation after generation until something finally gets healed. So you know one thing I was going to mention, we've only mentioned a few times on there, but we said something about the womb earlier, and so I thought I just thought people have to know in our research that we were doing with these 70,000 people going over there and back, we realized that when somebody's in the womb, they're coming from heaven, and they're in full consciousness. So they can
Mhm.
hear everything you're saying. They know your thoughts. They know what you're feeling. Just like it's like having an adult in your womb, I mean, a soul that's had hundreds of lives in your womb, hearing everything you're doing and everything you're saying. And then as they're born, the way things work is like a wall comes up of forgetfulness, so most people forget, that. But so anybody out there that's pregnant, or knowing anybody that's pregnant, mention that to them, that whatever you do and say and how you treat your body, it's like another adult in your room that knows what you're doing, you know. And I
I mean,
think
we
just
do forget in some ways, but there's a
yeah,
part of us that can those whispers, especially if there is a little bit of trauma and drama involved with it, that it can cause a little bit of that interaction. But there again is where I usually like going back to your mind where you said that you loathe actions that you did when you were younger. And that's where sometimes I have to say, I'm asking for healing on this.
Yeah.
I'm asking for healing because my mind wants to keep repeating those stories that we did something, right?
Yeah.
Because it likes to stay in the negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's had a pattern of staying in the negative. And so, I have to disrupt that negative thought, that loathing that we can get into, and just say, I'm asking for healing on this. I know I
I'm asking
didn't
you
do
for healing on
right,
this. Yeah.
but I've done the work to heal it. And I'm doing better every day in my life to do better. And having those communications with ourselves can really help negotiate those like
Yeah.
moments, right?
Well, and maybe this is where mantras come in. Um, I don't know the best definition of a mantra, but a mantra, from the way I look at it, is something that vibrates at a at a higher level than normal, that we say over and over again, like with, that has a positive. When you're saying it, your intention is it for something positive or something more loving or kind to happen, rather than normal. Sometimes mantras are just words like om or hu, and they're words that when you sing them, like when you're meditating or whatever, um, they lessen the space between this world and the other world, so you get, more light into your life or something. But
Mhm.
positive affirmations, this is the thing I learned in hypnotherapy school, that our minds, that words have power.
They
People say, oh,
do.
sticks and
Oh.
stones, but words will never hurt me. No, I mean, sometimes words can hurt more than sticks and stones, for some people, because we know, like when a child hears the word stupid, they've learned enough at 3 or 4 or 5 years old to know that stupid means you're not a very good person,
Mhm.
that you're kind of worthless or don't mean anything. So they know what that words mean. So even just something in the sense of if a parent says, "Oh, you're so stupid," or something like that. I mean, whoa. I mean, that can go to the deep subconscious and really get a young person to really feel that that's who they are. Because an adult said that. You spend the
Mhm.
rest of your adult life trying to erase that one thing that your parents said, you know. And that's why I think positive affirmations, if you think you're being kind of disingenuous when even if you're looking in the mirror saying, wow, I really love you to yourself, and part of you is going, come on, you don't really love yourself, you really loathe yourself. But when you begin to say that, even, and then
Oh,
sometimes,
and say it in spite of it.
and say it in spite of it, your subconscious starts saying, here's those words. Wow, you're looking in the mirror and you're saying, I love this person I see in the mirror. And the more you say it, and the more you say it with feeling, even if you're faking it till you make it, in a sense, it kind of, some people, I tell them, well, just fake it till you make it. What happens is they start doing that, and they get their foot in the door, and they go, oh, well, maybe I love myself, maybe just a little bit, well, you could even say that, wow, I love you a little bit. you know I mean, it starts that, and it mushrooms, and that, because words have a lot of power in there sometimes, not, I mean, all the time. When I'm creating an anchor and like I'm just using an example of a golfer that I came to me, and uh, he was um, he was like the Tiger Woods of Colombia at one point, winning all the tournaments. He was young, like 18 or so. He comes to America to try to become a golfer here, but he's 18, 19, and he meets a girl, and he starts falling in love, and he's out there golfing and just having all these new feelings and everything like that. He's becoming more vulnerable, emotional, and that. And so he would go up to hit a shot, and he would find his emotions were causing him to hit bad shots. So he would take me out golfing and show me how to golf, and then I would do a session for him. We just kind of traded.
Mhm.
But I taught him an anchor. I had him when he's in hypnosis. I had him rub his fingers together, and I said, when you and his subconscious is listening because he's in hypnosis. So I said, when you take your forefinger and your thumb and you write it together and you say the words calm and relaxed, but really alert, calm and relaxed, but really alert. And I had him do that for 2 or 3 minutes. And we were talking to subconscious, and he was hearing those words, calm and relaxed, really alert. So when he would go up to hit a shot, as he's walking up, he's got the club in one hand, and inside he's going, calm and relaxed, super alert, calm and relaxed. And he said just even doing that helped him get the jips out of, so he could hit better shots. So now he doesn't even need to say those words. He just does this. The subconscious goes, okay, we're jumping into calm and relaxed, and we're really alert, So that's what we call an anchor in hypnosis, that way,
Mhm.
um,
And we can do that at any point in time. We
yeah,
don't even have to really be in hypnosis, but it's repetitive interaction. The only thing about hypnosis and or meditations or whatever, we're in a different state of mind.
yeah,
We're in a relaxed state of mind. We're in kind of a detached state of mind from what our day-to-day life is. And but that's the whole thing about spirituality is getting through what we talked about today and doing the negotiation of that. And how do we treat ourselves? How do we treat other people? And that's the art of spirituality is being finding that blessing in the midst of the conflict. It's finding the grace in the middle of disharmony. It's that feeling of togetherness in the middle of not being together, right?
mm-hmm,
How can we do these things? And it's about changing the way we look at things, looking at somebody else's world a little bit differently. And there is no right or wrong. But there is, yeah, I can see your point of view. Can you see a little bit of my point of view? And then, like I've always strived in my marriage, to be on the 50-yard line. It's not about being on your side or my side.
yeah,
It's about being at the 50-yard line, getting each other and then trying to find a happy place. We may need to be on the 45 or the 40 or the 55, right? But at the same time though, how can we negotiate this in the middle of where we're at? And finding that blessing is the way to do it. But there again, we have to stop the negative thoughts, that rabbit hole that we can go down. And that's finding those quick not conversations we have. Like mine is, I'm asking for healing on this, I'm asking for healing on this, I'm asking for healing on this, so I can disrupt that rabbit hole. Or I didn't do
yeah.
anything wrong, but there's something I can change. I didn't do anything wrong, but there's something I can change. So what can I change now?
I like that.
Or even what if this is for my greater good? What if that this conversation is leading me to a greater knowing? What if, it's that shifting up, and you have to find something that you can get to quickly, because of the fact that we're going to be in these places. And I can tell you, with this new moon and eclipse that we had just this last weekend, that there's a lot of people that are getting into conflicts with ourselves. We have emotions that are running around, and we have voices that are not always in the most calmest way, right? I don't know
Yeah,
how many kids that I triggered yesterday, right? Because I said I had boundaries. I had loving, kind boundaries, right? You don't hit somebody else with the ball constantly. No, go to the end of the line. But I didn't want to do Sorry, cause and effect, right?
yeah,
But then what did I have to do with myself? I'm doing the righter thing. 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 I'm doing the righter thing, because I didn't want to go into that rabbit hole that I might have caused, right? So whatever can come to you, find grace with yourself. And no, we're going to be perfectly imperfect in this life. And it's that ebb and
yeah,
flow, but find the greater good out of it. What was this here to teach me is another one that I say. What is this here to teach me? There's something in this that I'm supposed to learn. What is this here to teach me, right? And
yeah.
how can you negotiate that?
Hmm.
So
So
Regan,
conflict.
yeah, I know, conflict. Oh, conflict of the
Well,
emotions in the head.
we usually know we've got the good and the bad on the shoulder, and we go back and forth. I mean, we instinctively usually know the best decision that we should make, and that's what's funny, is when we pretty much know the one that's for the greater good, or that's got more love in it than the other one. And it's so interesting how, even though we know that, how we why would we, since we know that, why would we ever go to the dark side,
Mhm.
but we find ourselves doing that, and I don't,
The
but
mind likes to go there.
I know, but the
It's
thing is,
been
I find
trained
out the
well.
older that I get, it's like I go to the good side more times than I did the year before,
Mhm.
and so I feel it more when I go to the dark side occasionally, uh, whew, boy, do I feel it. I mean, it's a really, really downward pull, puts me into depression even sometimes when I do that. And then hopefully that'll, get me
Mhm.
to remember that next time I have to make that decision, and to go to the light. you know.
We all hope we can go to the light, right? We all hope
Yeah.
we can go to the light.
All
Well,
right.
we're coming to the hour here, and I hope that everyone finds some kind of blessing in the midst of their conflicts of their emotions and their mind. We really didn't talk about the emotions, but I can tell you that the emotions really do trigger a lot of the conflict of the
Yeah.
mind. And so look at why your emotions are being triggered, and that can really help you look into the story of what is this here to teach me, and you know where are we at in life, and I keep asking for healing on this. Every time I think of the Middle East and Russia and all that scenario, that they never go away, really. The conflicts just keep happening, and I'm
Yeah.
asking for healing on this. And I know I can't help. I'm not flying over there to say stop, but I know that every day that I try to do my better, and doing better with me helps me do better outside of me.
Yeah.
And so
Just work on ourselves. So
work on
I'll tell
ourselves.
people, if anybody would like to have a regular therapy session, or they want to visit the afterlife, if you go to my website, visittheafterlife.com, there's videos on there on regular therapy, which is like the EFT or hypnosis, um, two of the modalities that I use. In addition to, I'm using Havening Touch now, which is awesome. And most of my clients have PTSD or some sort of, violence. PTSD covers, you could be in an auto accident, you get PTSD, or somebody dies tragically in your life and it's PTSD. It's not just you're a soldier somewhere and you go into battle and you get it from that. We get it from all sorts of things. And they have these great modalities that work wonders on that to get you back to a semblance of normalcy again. And I can do that over Zoom or in person. And That's at visittheafterlife.com. Lots of videos on there to watch that can educate you on what hypnosis is, and what this. There's even a young lady on there going through this process where she goes to heaven and back, and it's pretty cool to watch. And Natasha, now your website's still angelicclarifications.com, right?
Two
Uh,
C's and an S at the end.
yeah.
Two C's in the middle and an S at the end. Yes, and so, but I will keep them in their prayers. I keep the world in my thoughts and prayers. And then your daughter, yes, her daughter's going to go in for surgery, and
Whose is?
it's a 9-hour surgery. So I totally have been keeping her and your family in my
Wow.
thoughts and prayers, as I knew that it was getting closer. And thank you for being here. And I'm glad that
Is
you've been
that
interacting.
Victoria's?
What's that?
Victoria's daughter? Whose daughter?
Soba's daughter.
Oh, Soba's daughter. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. A 9 hour
So
surgery oh boy, that's difficult.
it is
Difficult.
difficult, and they've been on a path trying to find a better choice to do, and they found a good surgeon to do it. So
Yeah, let's hope
may the
the
angels be
angels are
with his
there.
hands. May the angels be working
Yeah,
his
yeah.
hands, and all the other people in the surgery. May the angels be part of them, so that they can do the better part of this
So,
dance.
so Natasha, would it help him while his daughter's having surgery?
It's
Let's say if
her,
he close or pardon?
her.
Yeah, her while um, Soba's daughter's having surgery.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Soba, is she? Okay, I don't know if it was. It sounded
That's
the
okay.
name
That's
could be
okay.
either.
It's a client.
Okay,
Yes.
so
So thank you.
so her
No, it's
daughter.
okay.
Okay,
We,
so
I feel like I've offended people in this show already, with different perspectives and perceptives, and trying to keep all that straight. And then, oh my gosh, I just, please forgive
So
me.
how about when this is happening? Let's say if she just, in a sense, looks up or whatever and says, "Okay, angels, you know, uh, please help this surgery go well." And even if she in her mind could see the angels around and guiding the surgeon's hand and that, I mean, is that going to make the outcome a little more positive? Just if she's positive, even though she's not in the operating room.
It will. It really does. And that's one thing that whenever I've been in conflict with anything, or in worry, that I put as much love in the room as I can, and I would put love around you and your family too, because I know there's going to be a lot of worry there. And so that's why I always say, let the angels be in the doctor's hands and in the room, because it does bring light into a room. Because if we have more worry and we're more on the negative side of distrust, then that creates the energy, because energy or thoughts create energy. And what kind of energy do we want to have? And it's not wrong or
Right.
right to be worried. Please know it's not wrong or right to be worried. That's you should be. You're a loving parent. It's like, mom and dad and parent. It's like, how can we negotiate this? But please remember that you're safe and you're good. And I see this happening, and there's going to be pain and ache of the body, but yet at the same time,
Going to
there
be
can be
okay.
healing with this.
How old is her daughter?
13.
Oh, okay. Well, her daughter's old enough, then Soba can actually coach her daughter a little bit and say, look, before they put you under anesthesia, just close your eyes and picture this beautiful white protective light around her,
Mhm.
and even to have her daughter imagine, however she does, an angel holding her hand, or, just so her daughter is in the right mode of surrender and relaxation.
Mhm.
One thing we found out in hypnosis was, when people use hypnosis before they go into surgery, in the studies they've done, they found that there's less scarring,
Yep.
and it heals much faster, because when a knife goes into the human body, it's natural to think that's an invader, and it's like to push away. But when you tell the subconscious, is this is a friend here, this is for your good, it's going to be okay, so welcome that, and they found out, when people have that, go into it that way, more relaxed, and knowing that the knife is an okay thing, it's going to be to get better, that they have better results. But
My
13,
dad did
they're,
that when he had colon surgery, is that
yeah,
he really thought of how this was gonna be a blessing for him, and the doctor even said that his surgery was one of the least bleeding surgeries he's ever had. So
yeah,
going in and trusting the process. I even do that going to the dentist, or getting my blood drawn, or whatever it is. I ask that this thing be a part of my positive journey, and let this be the greater good coming to me, so that we can be, even during a massage or something like that, that I go in with, I'm
yeah,
trusting this, I'm surrendering to this, I'm knowing that the greater good's going to happen out of this. And I pray that it is the greater good, and that the surgeon has the magicness that can do this, and he has the intention to hold the blessings, and that everything is going to be negotiating it, and that the I'll keep her in my prayers, my dear.
when is your daughter going in for surgery?
Monday.
Monday. Okay, so it's going to be a big day. So Soba, next Wednesday, check in with Natasha on her show, and maybe Natasha will send me a little thing, tell me how it went.
Oh, I will. I
That'd be great.
will.
So,
Yes, 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 yes. So,
all right.
everyone, please know that you're perfectly imperfect going through this journey of our conflicts. And, so, but you probably had a lot of I know I had a session with you when you were trying to figure out the steps to do for the surgery. That was a big conflict moment. And
Yeah.
I hope today's conversation, helped a little bit. And, you know, asking for divine healing on this would be a good mantra for you to do over and over again when you're worried about surgery. Um, and negotiating that story of what you're doing, and I'm asking for healing on this. I'm asking for healing on this because it's something that is greater. So blessings to all.
Good luck.
Blessings all. And I will be on next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Pacific time. Thank you all for being here. If you're looking for podcasts, you can reach podcasts at Every Day with an Angel. And please remember that I do give supporting videos. They're 2-minute videos that you can find them on most platforms, Instagram, TikTok, all those different platforms, Facebook,
It's too many.
to support you on your journey. And remembering that things are happening. Oh, and I'm attuned to the energies of the now would be another one, Soba, that can be good for you to do. That's a mantra that I use a lot when I'm attuning to the energies. So maybe that's a good one for your daughter. I'm attuning to the energies of the now, so that as she's going into the surgery, that she's attuning to what's happening in our world. I'm attuning to the energies of the now so that the greater good can happen. That just popped in. So I hope that one helps too. And she says that I'm sure we'll do that. Thank you. I'm grateful. And I'm so grateful for you too. You're a magic woman who's doing a lot of good. So
Yeah, thanks
blessings
for
to all.
watching today.
Yeah, so blessings, everyone. And Regan will be back the third
Wednesday of next month.
next month. Is that Thanksgiving?
That's going to be November. Oh, well, let's see,
1, 2, 3.
Wednesday.
No, it's the 15th. It's the 15th.
15th. Okay.
Right before Thanksgiving. So
Yeah,
blessings,
I'll be
everyone.
coming back from doing a session for Connie Willis.
Oh,
on the
yes,
15th
on
or
Coast to
so.
Coast, when I was on Coast to Coast with Connie.
Yeah, actually, I think that might be one of the times I'm doing a session with her, but I think it'll be earlier in the day or something. But I'll let you know as we get closer.
Okay, because we can always change it to the 4th.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right.
whatever works. Well,
Okay.
blessings, everyone. And
See you
remember
next time.
that the thoughts create action. So what is your thoughts to create? I'm Natasha Venter, angelicclarifications.com. If you'd like a personal session with that, please know that I can help you. And blessings, everyone. See you next Wednesday. And blessings, Soba, on the surgery. Bye now.